Hello friends. Have you ever wondered why some people crash after a long day while others somehow keep going? Maybe the stars have something to do with it. Today, we're diving deep into how each zodiac sign deals with fatigue, because let's face it, we're all tired, but we're not tired the same way. After watching, if you'd like to support the channel, click the thanks button right under this video or use the donation alerts link in the description. Your support really helps me keep creating. And of course, if you enjoy the content, please give it a like and subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next. Thanks so much for being here. Now let's continue. Let's start with Aries, the unstoppable warrior. When exhaustion creeps into an Aries life, it doesn't come quietly. It's not a gentle whisper that says, "Hey, maybe take a break." No, fatigue for Aries feels like an intruder breaking through their battlefield. They don't see tiredness as a natural signal to rest, they see it as an opponent to overcome. Their instinct isn't to lie down, it's to fight back harder. You'll find them lacing up their sneakers for a late-night run when most people are winding down, or diving into a new side project right after a full day of work. They treat fatigue like it's a test of endurance, a challenge to prove that their willpower burns brighter than their body's limits. Aries runs on pure adrenaline. Their energy is electric, contagious, and sometimes self-destructive. They thrive in motion, driven by passion, competition, and the thrill of pushing past what's comfortable. That's why when exhaustion finally hits, it doesn't trickle in, it strikes like a crash. One moment, they're unstoppable. The next, they're utterly drained. Their flame burns so hot that it can snuff itself out. And when Aries crashes, it's not subtle. They might disappear for a few days, retreat into sleep, or suddenly go quiet after weeks of non-stop energy. It's their body's way of saying, enough. But here's the paradox, Aries often resents rest. They see it as wasted potential, as if pausing for a day will somehow make them lose their edge. They'll even brag about how little sleep they need, wearing exhaustion like a badge of honor. Yet deep down, their fire needs balance. Just like a warrior returning from battle, Aries must learn the art of recovery. True strength isn't about constant motion. It's about knowing when to retreat, rebuild, and return stronger. When Aries finally allows themselves to rest, it's almost revolutionary. A long shower turns into meditation. A nap feels like resurrection. A walk in silence becomes a moment of peace instead of boredom. Rest, for Aries, is not the enemy. It's the armor polish before the next adventure. Once they realize this, their energy transforms from reckless bursts to sustainable power. So, when Aries is tired, don't tell them to just relax. That phrase means nothing to them. Instead, challenge them to recharge like a champion. Turn rest into a mission, and suddenly they'll do it proudly. Because when Aries learns to balance their fire with stillness, they don't just win battles, they win the war against burnout itself. Taurus, the comfort lover, handles fatigue like a pro, by embracing it. If Aries is the warrior, Taurus is the healer, the grounded soul who knows that rest is not weakness, but wisdom. When fatigue enters a Taurus world, they don't resist it or ignore it. They listen to it. To them, exhaustion isn't an obstacle. It's a message from the body that says, it's time to slow down, breathe, and come back to yourself. Taurus understands that you can't pour from an empty cup, so when theirs begins to run dry, they refill it with gentleness, pleasure, and care. Picture this. Soft lighting, a cozy blanket, a steaming mug of tea that smells faintly of honey and chamomile. A playlist humming with warm tones. Maybe a scented candle flickers on the nightstand, casting golden reflections across the room. This is how Taurus deals with fatigue, not by pushing through it, but by creating a sanctuary around themselves. They don't just rest, they curate an experience of rest. Every sense is engaged, every detail intentional. The world slows down, and in that stillness, they rebuild their strength. For Taurus, rest isn't laziness, it's a form of self-love. They understand that slowing down doesn't make them less productive, it makes their productivity more meaningful. They're ruled by Venus, the planet of beauty and pleasure, so their recovery process is sensual and deeply embodied. They might cook a nourishing meal, take a slow walk through nature, or simply lie in bed and listen to the rain. Whatever form it takes, their rest always has an earthy, grounding quality to it. But make no mistake, Taurus can work hard, often harder than anyone else. They have remarkable endurance. The secret is that they know when to pause. While others burn themselves out chasing deadlines, Taurus moves with quiet consistency, balancing effort with ease. They understand the rhythm of energy and respect it. When they rest fully. No guilt, no overthinking, just presence. Their fatigue doesn't make them impatient or frustrated. It makes them reflective. Taurus uses tired moments to check in with themselves, to ask, what have I been giving my energy to? Is it worth it? They see rest as a form of realignment, a return to what truly matters. When Taurus finally re-emerges from their cocoon of calm, they're not just recharged, they're radiant. Their eyes are softer, their mind clearer, their determination steady again. They're like fertile soil after rain, ready to grow, ready to build, ready to thrive. There's something profoundly beautiful about how Taurus honors their body's signals. They remind us that productivity without peace is empty, and that fatigue isn't a flaw, it's feedback. Their approach teaches the rest of us that rest isn't an escape from life's chaos, it's the foundation that allows us to handle it gracefully. So if Aries burns bright and fast, Taurus glows slow and steady. They show us that the real strength lies not in resisting rest, but in embracing it as the most natural, powerful way to rise again. Gemini gets mentally exhausted more than physically. When fatigue hits Gemini, it doesn't usually come from lifting heavy things or running around all day. It comes from thinking too much, from talking too much, from feeling too much through endless streams of information. Their mind is a supercomputer running 20 tabs at once, constantly processing new data, new ideas, new stories. Every text, every podcast, every headline feels like another spark in the Gemini brain, but eventually, that brilliant light show starts to flicker. When the noise gets too loud, when the ideas start tangling together, that's when mental exhaustion sets in. It's not the kind of tiredness that a nap can fix, it's the kind that needs a reset of curiosity, a shift of mental scenery. Gemini's energy thrives on stimulation, and paradoxically, that's also what drains them. They might wake up excited, scroll through messages, check emails, jump between conversations, podcasts, and creative projects, and by midday, they've already lived 5 different emotional lives. They love the thrill of constant movement, until their brain quietly starts begging for a pause. But for Gemini, stillness can feel unnatural. Silence can even feel suffocating. So, when they're tired, they don't usually stop moving, they just switch channels. They'll dive into a completely different activity, maybe chatting with someone new, binge-watching YouTube clips, or scrolling through a random Reddit thread about a topic they've never thought about before. To an outsider, it looks like more chaos. But for Gemini, that's rest. It's mental recalibration through novelty. Their brain finds rest not in shutting down, but in changing lanes. When they stumble upon something that makes them laugh, inspires a thought, or sparks a new idea, you can practically see the light return to their eyes. If they're completely drained, Gemini might retreat into silence for a bit, curling up in bed, headphones on, lost in music that carries them somewhere far from their own thoughts. Sometimes, they'll just stare at the ceiling, replaying snippets of conversations or imagining future possibilities. But even in those quiet moments, their mind is gently reorganizing itself. Gemini doesn't need the world to go away, they just need to rediscover wonder in it. They're ruled by Mercury, the planet of communication, which means their energy is mental, electric, and mercurial. It shifts fast, it adapts fast, but it also burns out fast. So, when Gemini feels drained, the best thing they can do is to give themselves permission to unplug from the expectations of constant interaction. To not answer every message. To not have to be on all the time. They need space to think for themselves again, not just think about everything around them. Imagine Gemini as a radio antenna that picks up every frequency in the air. After a while, the static becomes overwhelming. What they need is to tune back to their own signal, to remember their unique voice among the noise. That's when they start feeling alive again. When inspiration strikes, they'll bounce back instantly, full of ideas, jokes, and new perspectives. Because for Gemini, fatigue isn't failure. It's just a reminder that even the brightest minds need time to wander, not always race. Their rest is curiosity reborn. Cancer, the nurturer, deals with fatigue emotionally. When Cancer feels tired, it's not just about sore muscles or a long workday. It's something deeper, something softer. Their exhaustion seeps into their heart first. Cancers are emotional sponges, absorbing everyone else's moods and problems without even realizing it. They take care of others instinctively, listening, comforting, giving, supporting, but after a while, that giving drains them dry. Fatigue for Cancer isn't just physical depletion. It's emotional emptiness, the quiet ache that comes from being strong for everyone else. When they reach that point, Cancer doesn't explode or complain. They retreat. They slip quietly back into their shell, craving solitude and familiarity. Maybe they'll spend an evening alone in their favorite space, wrapped in a blanket, watching an old movie that feels like a hug from the past. Or they'll cook something slow and simple, pasta, soup, cookies, the kind of food that warms from the inside out. The act of nurturing themselves through comfort and routine helps them heal. For Cancer, home is not just a place, it's therapy. Their recharge process is gentle but profound. They don't need excitement or stimulation. They need warmth, love, and safety. They might text a close friend, not to talk about anything heavy, but just to feel a sense of emotional connection. They might light a candle, take a long bath, or simply sit by the window watching the rain fall. Cancer's soul rests through emotional security. When they feel safe, they begin to breathe again. Cancers are ruled by the moon, and like the moon, their energy waxes and wanes. One day, they're glowing with empathy, lighting up everyone around them. The next, they're dimmer, withdrawn, replenishing their light. And that's okay, because that rhythm is their power. When they try to fight it, when they push themselves to keep giving without taking, they're emotional body rebels. They become moody, distant, even tearful, not because they're weak, but because their empathy has reached its limit. What restores them is gentleness, being near loved ones who understand their quiet nature, or being completely alone in an environment that feels safe. Cancer's fatigue melts away not through distraction, but through comfort. They find peace in familiar scents, soft textures, and memories that remind them they're loved. Sometimes, just hearing someone say, "You've done enough. Rest now," can bring them to tears, and that release is healing in itself. When they emerge from their rest, Cancer's energy returns like the tide, slowly, steadily, full of emotion and compassion once more. Their heart reopens to the world, ready to nurture again, but this time from a place of fullness, not depletion. Their lesson is simple but vital. Caring for others means nothing if they forget to care for themselves. Cancer teaches us that rest isn't only for the body, it's for the soul. It's found in softness, in safety, in the quiet space where emotions can exhale. And when they allow themselves that, their inner light shines brighter than ever, guiding not just themselves, but everyone lucky enough to orbit their gentle universe. Now Leo, the radiant performer, gets tired when they've been shining too bright for too long. When fatigue finds its way into Leo's world, it never announces itself quietly. For a sign that lives to light up every room, exhaustion feels almost foreign, like the sudden dimming of a stage spotlight mid-performance. Leos are born under the sun, the cosmic symbol of vitality, pride, and illumination, and they carry that same glow everywhere they go. Their energy doesn't just warm people, it inspires them. Leos are the friends who volunteer to organize the party, the coworkers who lift the mood at the office, the dreamers who make even ordinary days feel like celebrations. But what happens when the performer behind that dazzling smile finally runs out of applause? For Leo, fatigue often arrives not as simple tiredness, but as a deep emotional fog that dulls their natural spark. It's not just physical exhaustion, it's the fading of their own inner spotlight. They might start to feel invisible, unappreciated, or creatively uninspired. The world around them can begin to look a little gray, as if someone turned down the saturation. And for a sign that thrives on brightness, that loss of luster can be disorienting. Leos often pour so much of themselves into others, spreading joy, offering support, lifting spirits, that they forget how to refuel their own energy. Their generosity, both emotional and creative, is endless, until it isn't. When fatigue hits, Leo might still try to maintain their image of confidence and charisma. They'll smile through exhaustion, perform through burnout, and pretend everything's fine. But inside, they know when the fire's flickering low. When that moment arrives, Leo instinctively retreats, not out of defeat, but out of self-preservation. They pull back from the spotlight to find their center again. Maybe they'll spend the weekend away from social obligations, trading parties for peaceful solitude. They'll sleep in, pamper themselves, and rediscover the simple pleasures that make them feel human again. For Leo, self-care is not a trend, it's a sacred ritual. A long bath with music, a quiet morning in sunlight, or even a few words of appreciation from a close friend can reignite their flame. Leo's energy is solar. It needs admiration the way the sun needs the horizon. But it's not vanity, it's vitality. Compliments and gratitude don't just boost their ego, they restore their soul. They remind Leo that their light matters. When they feel seen, they glow brighter. When they feel unseen, they dim. So when fatigue sets in, Leo's best medicine is often love, pure, heartfelt validation that reminds them their warmth changes lives. After rest and reconnection, Leo doesn't just bounce back, they rise. They re-emerge with more strength, more confidence, and more charisma than before. It's as if rest recharges their crown. They step back into the world radiant again, ready to inspire, to lead, and to remind everyone around them that joy is contagious. Leo teaches a powerful lesson about burnout. You can't shine endlessly without recharging your light. Their exhaustion reminds us all that even stars need darkness to sparkle again. And when they return from that quiet space of self-love, the world can't help but notice, they're glowing once more, as if fatigue was never even there. Virgo treats exhaustion like a problem to solve. For Virgo, fatigue isn't a mystery, it's a puzzle. The moment they feel their energy dip, they don't surrender to it, they analyze it. Why am I tired? What caused it? How can I fix it? Their mind immediately switches into diagnostic mode, scanning every aspect of their day like a human search engine. Maybe they didn't drink enough water. Maybe they overcommitted. Maybe they scrolled through emails too late at night. Whatever it is, Virgo will find it, and they'll build a plan to never let it happen again. You'll see them at their desk, researching 10 ways to improve sleep quality, or reorganizing their planner to optimize rest times. They might track their caffeine intake, check their step count, or experiment with new productivity techniques that balance efficiency with wellness. Virgo doesn't just want to rest, they want to rest smart. They believe that order restores peace, and peace restores energy. So when they're running on fumes, they look for control in the chaos. But here's the quiet truth about Virgo. Sometimes, their quest for perfection is what exhausts them in the first place. They carry invisible lists in their minds, tasks, responsibilities, worries, and even as they rest, their brain keeps sorting and evaluating. They'll lie in bed analyzing the day, wondering what they could have done better. Their exhaustion isn't only physical, it's mental, emotional, and born from caring too much. Virgo wants everything, and everyone, to function smoothly, even at the cost of their own ease. When they finally hit their limit, their fatigue can manifest as irritability, overthinking, or even self-criticism. But once Virgo recognizes that exhaustion isn't a flaw, they can begin to heal. Their version of rest starts small. Tidying a space, making a to-do list for tomorrow so they can let go of today, or journaling their thoughts to clear mental clutter. The act of organizing brings them comfort. It's how they reclaim control over the intangible. True restoration for Virgo comes when they allow themselves imperfection. When they stop optimizing and start simply existing. Maybe they'll spend a day doing something beautifully unproductive, reading fiction, walking without a goal, or tending to plants just for the joy of it. Those moments of surrender are their medicine. They might not realize it, but when Virgo lets go, the world doesn't fall apart, it falls into place. And when they rise again, they do so quietly, gracefully, ready to handle life's demands with renewed focus and calm. Their strength lies not in endless work, but in their ability to restore balance through clarity. Virgo teaches us that peace isn't about perfection, it's about harmony. So when fatigue hits, Virgo doesn't crumble, they recalibrate. They turn exhaustion into insight, chaos into order, and weakness into wisdom. And once their mind and body are in sync again, they return to their world with that unmistakable Virgo glow, serene, capable, and ready to fix not just the problems around them, but the ones within. Libra, the social butterfly, feels drained when things are out of balance, too much work, too little fun. Libra lives in pursuit of balance, the perfect blend of effort and ease, conversation and quiet, light and shadow. Their soul is tuned like an instrument, sensitive to every discord in their environment. When things around them fall out of harmony, when the workload outweighs laughter, or when the people they care about grow distant, their energy begins to fade in subtle, almost invisible ways. Libra doesn't always notice fatigue coming. It arrives disguised as restlessness, a dull ache for something beautiful, something fair, something that feels right again. At their best, Libras are graceful, charming, endlessly curious about people and experiences. They feed on human connection the way flowers feed on sunlight. But that same openness means they absorb the emotional weather of every room they enter. A tense argument, a critical tone, an unfair comment, they feel it all like static in the air. When too many of those moments pile up, Libra starts to dim. They become quiet, indecisive, distant, not because they don't care, but because their internal scales are off balance. When that happens, Libra's instinct for self-restoration begins. They know instinctively that beauty heals. They'll reach for it like medicine. Maybe they'll draw a bath surrounded by candles that glow like tiny galaxies, or rearrange their bedroom until the space itself feels like a poem. They might put on a soft playlist, something jazzy, romantic, or dreamlike, and let the rhythm bring their heart back to equilibrium. For Libra, aesthetics aren't superficial, they're soul therapy. A vase of fresh flowers, the warmth of golden light through the window, a perfectly brewed cup of coffee, all of it becomes a silent ritual of self-love. And then, there's people. Libras thrive on gentle, affirming connection. They might call a close friend and talk for hours about nothing and everything, laughter spilling between them like water restoring life to dry ground. Being around kind, balanced souls recharges them. They're reminded that the world still holds beauty, fairness, and grace. That reminder lifts them out of fatigue faster than any nap could. But sometimes, the best company for Libra is their own reflection. They'll spend time journaling, painting, or simply daydreaming, searching for that inner harmony that only they can create. When they give themselves permission to rest, to stop pleasing everyone else, they rediscover that balance isn't found through others, it's built within. When they emerge from their period of recalibration, their aura shifts. Their laughter feels lighter, their eyes brighter. They radiate calm charm again, drawing people in not because they seek validation, but because they embody peace. Libra teaches us that fatigue is often a symptom of imbalance, and the cure isn't harder work. It's beauty, harmony, and the courage to pause long enough to remember who we are when life feels soft and kind. Scorpio hides their fatigue behind intensity. When Scorpio is exhausted, you won't see it in drooping eyes or slumped shoulders. You'll see it in silence, in the stillness that replaces their usual fire. Scorpios are the masters of concealment. They protect their inner world like a sacred temple. Fatigue, for them, is a vulnerability they refuse to display. They'll keep moving, keep working, keep pouring passion into their projects and relationships long after their energy has frayed. Their drive is fueled by emotion, and they fear that slowing down means losing control of it. Scorpio's fatigue often runs deep, buried under layers of determination. They might go through the motions of daily life, speaking, smiling, helping others, while inside, they're empty. They hide it so well that even those closest to them may not notice. But eventually, the emotional pressure builds, and Scorpio vanishes. No warning, no explanation, just gone. It's not an act of coldness, it's survival. Withdrawal is their form of self-preservation. When they disappear, Scorpio retreats into solitude like a creature returning to its den. They crave darkness, silence, privacy, the kind of environment where they can finally drop their guard. Maybe they'll spend hours lying in bed, scrolling through thoughts instead of screens. Maybe they'll walk late at night under the stars, letting the quiet sky absorb what words never could. In this solitude, Scorpio doesn't rest in the traditional sense, they transform. Their rest is metamorphosis. They sift through their emotions, confront the pain they've ignored, and burn away everything that no longer serves them. Because Scorpio's energy is emotional fire, their fatigue is never just physical, it's spiritual. They get tired from caring too much, from feeling too deeply, from carrying invisible secrets and emotional debts. To heal, they must shed, like a snake letting go of old skin. That process can be uncomfortable, even lonely, but when they emerge, they're renewed in a way that's nothing short of alchemical. Their recharging process isn't about luxury or ease, it's about rebirth. Scorpio finds power in introspection, in rediscovering what matters beneath the noise. They might write, meditate, or simply sit in stillness until their strength returns. Then, without fanfare, they rise again, focused, magnetic, unbreakable. What's fascinating about Scorpio is that their fatigue often leads them to evolution. Every period of rest becomes a transformation. They return sharper, wiser, more emotionally aware. The very exhaustion that once drained them becomes fuel for their next phase. Scorpio doesn't just rest, they rebuild their soul. And when they step back into the world, people notice. Their presence feels even more powerful, their eyes holding a depth that only comes from facing one's own shadows. Scorpio reminds us that fatigue isn't weakness, it's the body's call for renewal. Their way of resting teaches that sometimes, to truly recharge, we must disappear for a while, dive deep into the silence within, and emerge reborn, stronger than anyone ever expected. Sagittarius fights tiredness with adventure. When exhaustion finds Sagittarius, it never looks ordinary. They don't slump over a desk or crawl into bed with a sigh of surrender. They start pacing, restless, eyes bright with a strange kind of fatigue that looks almost like excitement. For Sagittarius, tiredness is not just about the body. It's about the spirit feeling trapped, dulled by routine, confined by predictability. The moment their energy dips, their instinct isn't to lie down but to escape. To them, the cure for fatigue isn't sleep, it's freedom. When a Sagittarius feels drained, they crave a change of scenery like oxygen. You'll see it in the way they stare out the window during a long workday, their mind already halfway across the country, imagining the open road, the hum of tires against asphalt, and a horizon that keeps unfolding. A spontaneous road trip is their version of medicine, rolling the windows down, music loud, wind rushing through their hair, every mile peeling away the weight of exhaustion. They need to feel movement, both physical and emotional. Staying still only deepens their fatigue, because for Sagittarius, boredom is the real burnout. Their energy is fire, wild, flickering, and impossible to contain. The more they're forced into monotony, the faster they burn out. When that spark starts fading, Sagittarius instinctively searches for something new to ignite it. A new hobby, a new philosophy, a new place to get lost in. You might see them signing up for a pottery class out of nowhere, or booking a flight at 2 a.m. because they just need to see something different. And somehow, it works. The minute they're learning, exploring, or laughing in unfamiliar territory, their fatigue melts away. Sagittarius doesn't recharge by resting in stillness, they recharge by expanding. They're ruled by Jupiter, the planet of growth and wisdom, which means their soul feeds on discovery. Even when they're exhausted, the spark of curiosity still glows inside them, urging them towards something bigger than themselves. Sometimes that means traveling. Sometimes it just means a mental journey, reading a new book, diving into a deep conversation, or chasing a fresh idea. Their rest comes through inspiration. But this endless hunger for experience can also backfire. When they push too hard, chasing excitement without pause, they eventually hit a wall. Their body gives out before their spirit does, forcing them to acknowledge that even explorers need to rest their wings. When that happens, Sagittarius must learn the art of quiet adventure, the kind that happens within. Meditation, journaling, or simply watching a sunset can become their path to renewal. The beauty of Sagittarius is that their fatigue always leads to transformation. They never stay tired for long, because they refuse to let life grow dull. Even in exhaustion, they'll find something worth chasing, a reason to believe again. Their restlessness is their rhythm. It reminds them that their purpose isn't to stay comfortable, but to keep growing. So when Sagittarius feels drained, they don't collapse, they evolve. They run toward the unknown, and somewhere between the laughter, the movement, and the thrill of discovery, they find their energy again. Their cure for exhaustion is wonder itself. Capricorn sees fatigue as a weakness they don't want to admit. For Capricorn, tiredness isn't just a physical state, it's a battle with pride. They're the Zodiac's mountain climbers, always scaling higher, always reaching for the next summit. Fatigue, to them, feels like gravity trying to drag them down, and they hate giving in. You'll rarely hear a Capricorn say, "I'm tired." Even when their body aches, when their eyes sting from lack of sleep, when every bone in their body pleads for a break, they'll keep going. They see endurance as proof of strength, and rest as a luxury reserved for others. Capricorn's work ethic is unmatched. They're fueled by ambition, responsibility, and the quiet satisfaction of achievement. But that drive, while admirable, often turns into self-punishment. They'll tell themselves they'll rest after this deadline, after this project, after this goal, but there's always another mountain waiting. They measure success in effort, and the idea of slowing down feels like failure. The irony, of course, is that the more they push through exhaustion, the less effective they become. Their body whispers, "Rest," but Capricorn only listens when it starts shouting. When fatigue finally forces them to stop, it's not gentle. It comes in the form of burnout, illness, or emotional numbness. Capricorn doesn't crash softly, they hit the wall at full speed. And in that stillness, they're often left wondering who they are without the constant grind. But this moment, as painful as it is, becomes their greatest teacher. It's when they learn that rest isn't weakness, it's strategy. Once Capricorn starts viewing rest as a tool rather than a setback, everything changes. They begin to schedule it the same way they schedule work, intentionally, efficiently, and without guilt. Maybe they take an afternoon to disconnect completely. No emails, no responsibilities, just a long walk in nature or a quiet evening with a book that has nothing to do with productivity. They learn to build rest into their structure, not as an interruption, but as maintenance, because even machines need downtime to run smoothly. When they finally embrace rest, it becomes one of their greatest strengths. Their focus sharpens, their patience deepens, their creativity blooms. They start to realize that balance doesn't threaten success, it sustains it. Capricorn's evolution lies in understanding that self-discipline includes caring for themselves, not just pushing harder. Their rest, like everything else they do, is purposeful. They don't collapse into laziness, they invest in restoration. Maybe it's meditation, maybe it's journaling, maybe it's simply allowing themselves to enjoy the quiet satisfaction of doing nothing for once. Whatever the method, when Capricorn rests, they come back unstoppable. So yes, Capricorn sees fatigue as weakness, but only until they learn that recovery is part of the climb. Once they master that lesson, their strength becomes unshakable. Because the Capricorn who knows how to pause becomes the Capricorn who can conquer anything, without losing themselves on the way up the mountain. Aquarius deals with exhaustion by detaching. When Aquarius reaches the edges of exhaustion, it doesn't look like the burnout you might see in others. It's quieter, stranger, more cerebral. Their fatigue doesn't always show on their face or in their posture. It shows in the faraway look in their eyes, in the sudden stillness that replaces their usual spark of invention. They live in their mind more than anywhere else, a landscape of thoughts, theories, and ideas that never really stops buzzing. But when the noise gets too loud, when the world demands too much of their empathy, their intellect, their unconventional genius, Aquarius does what they do best: they detach. For them, detachment isn't coldness, it's survival. The Aquarian mind is like a lightning storm of innovation and curiosity, and when it starts short-circuiting from overstimulation, the only way to restore balance is to pull the plug. They retreat from the social world, often without warning, and vanish into the calm silence of solitude. Maybe they'll spend hours lying on the floor, staring at the ceiling, thoughts unfurling like smoke. Or maybe they'll disappear into a podcast, letting someone else's voice carry them away while their mind quietly reorganizes itself. Aquarius needs freedom more than they need rest. What drains them isn't just physical effort, it's mental confinement. Too many rules, too many expectations, too much emotional clutter in the air. They crave the clean, clear space where they can think without interference. To an outsider, their withdrawal can seem distant, even aloof, but it's actually an act of deep self-care. When they detach, they're not running away from the world, they're recharging so they can return to it with fresh vision. In their solitude, Aquarius doesn't shut off their brain, they let it breathe. They might scribble down half-formed ideas for inventions, social theories, or future plans. They might take long walks, headphones in, listening to something that stimulates but doesn't overwhelm, science podcasts, philosophy talks, ambient soundscapes. Their version of rest is intellectual wandering, not complete stillness. What truly rejuvenates Aquarius is mental freedom, the ability to let their thoughts flow without direction or demand. They don't need applause, they don't need attention, they need space to imagine. Their exhaustion heals in the realm of possibility. They might dream up solutions to problems no one else has thought of, or sketch visions of a world that works better, feels fairer, lives freer. That's how they rest, by exploring the infinite, unpressured version of life inside their own mind. But even Aquarius must learn that detachment has limits. If they isolate for too long, they risk drifting too far into abstraction, forgetting that human connection is part of their oxygen too. Their challenge is to balance solitude with presence, to return from their inner galaxy and share what they've found. When they do, something remarkable happens. They come back to the world renewed, their energy charged not by rest in the traditional sense, but by inspiration. The fatigue that once dulled them becomes the compost for new ideas, new dreams, new revolutions of thought. Aquarius teaches us that rest isn't always about stopping, it's about freeing the mind enough to imagine again. And Pisces, the dreamer, naturally turns to imagination to heal their fatigue. Pisces doesn't fight tiredness, they dissolve into it. When they're weary, emotionally, mentally, or physically, they don't resist the feeling. They float with it, letting exhaustion carry them inward, into the vast, fluid ocean of their imagination. For Pisces, fatigue isn't just something to cure, it's an invitation to dream. They are, by nature, dreamers and empaths, constantly absorbing the emotions, worries, and stories of those around them. It's as if they're a sponge for the world's energies, soaking up every joy and sorrow they encounter. Over time, this emotional absorption weighs on them, creating a kind of soulful tiredness that can't be fixed with sleep alone. When that happens, Pisces retreats, gently, quietly, into the inner sanctuary of their imagination. You'll find them curled up with headphones, letting music wash over them like waves. The melodies aren't just background noise, they're medicine, each note loosening the knots of stress within. Sometimes they'll paint, write, or simply stare into space, building worlds in their mind that feel more vivid than the one outside. They might drift into a daydream so deep it feels almost spiritual, a sacred journey into their own subconscious where peace lives untouched by time. For Pisces, rest is not a passive act, it's a creative experience. They heal through beauty, through poetry, through stories that remind them life is still full of magic. When they're tired, they don't need logic or structure, they need wonder. Their imagination becomes a sanctuary, a tide pool where they can let go of pain, responsibility, and the harsh edges of reality. Their fatigue often stems from caring too deeply. They want to help, to heal, to hold others' burdens, and in doing so, they forget their own limits. When that well runs dry, they instinctively turn to art in any form: music, film, journaling, or simply the rhythm of rain outside a window. Each creative escape replenishes their spirit molecule by molecule. Pisces rests best in softness, dim light, cozy textures, the soothing hum of distant sound. They crave the feeling of safety that allows their inner world to unfold fully. Even sleep, for them, is more than physical recovery. It's a nightly voyage through imagination, where dreams act as therapy, stitching their scattered emotions back together. When they finally reawaken, Pisces doesn't just feel rested, they feel renewed. Their empathy returns, their intuition sharpens, their creativity surges back like a wave. They see the world again through compassionate, glowing eyes, ready to love, to create, to feel everything deeply once more. Pisces reminds us that rest isn't only found in silence or stillness, it's found in beauty, in imagination, in the act of turning inward and creating meaning from emotion. They heal through art because, for them, creation is restoration. The dream world they build isn't an escape, it's a bridge back to themselves. And when they return, they bring a kind of peace the waking world can never quite replicate. The peace of someone who's remembered that even in exhaustion, the soul can still dance. So, the next time you feel drained, maybe take a cue from your zodiac sign. The stars might not fix your sleep schedule, but they can remind you what kind of rest your soul really craves. If you enjoyed this cosmic breakdown, give this video a thumbs up, hit subscribe for more astrology insights, and check out the links in the description for daily zodiac updates. Until next time, rest like your sign would.